All right, with that, let's get started with tonight's presentation, San Diego Real Estate and Economic Update. Real quick, just a short background on myself. My name is Patrick Kappel. I have a little over 15 years experience in the San Diego real estate market. My wife and I own 8 properties that we started buying about a decade and a half ago. So I understand firsthand what it's like to be a real estate owner and investor in San Diego County. I'm also a board member of the Southern California Apartment Association. I started the real estate team that I have today, the Kappel Realty Group, after transitioning from active duty in the US Navy in 2015 to working in brokerage full time. And since that time, my team has sold nearly $500 million in San Diego real estate. What that means for you is not only do we have the educational background, but we have the practical background to be able to inform consumers about what's going on, boots on the ground in the San Diego real estate market. But we combine that with an educational background in real estate as well, which you see there in the center. I have a master's degree, a master's of science in real estate. I have a second master's degree, an MBA with a focus in finance. And I earned my undergraduate degree at the US Naval Academy. You see all the awards there on the right. Our team has earned a lot more awards than what you see. But because we approach real estate, not from a sales, but rather from an educational perspective, we've really garnered a large following of clients here in San Diego. If you're interested in buying or selling real estate in the near future, feel free to reach out to me or anyone on my team, and we'll be happy to help you buy or sell San Diego real estate. And keep in mind that we'll do it from an educational perspective. The number one complaints that consumers have about real estate agents is they feel like their agent didn't educate them throughout the process. So that's why we focus on education. If you have any questions after tonight's presentation, or if you'd like a copy of tonight's presentation, feel free to shoot me an email at patrick.kappel@compass.com. You see that email up there at the top of your screen, and I'll be happy to forward everything that we cover tonight to you or anyone else you think that could benefit from this. Next, I always like to start out with this saying because it's really coming to be true, and that is that San Diego today is San Francisco circa 1990s. And what I mean by that in the context of real estate is that real estate exploded in value in San Francisco throughout the 90s through the early 2000s. Not because of a magical reason, but because the economy in San Francisco exploded, and more importantly, exploded in value in the 1990s and early 2000s. When the economy of a city grows rapidly, the values of real estate in that city also grow rapidly. Now, you didn't need to work in tech in San Francisco in the 1990s to build a large amount of net worth. All you had to do was own real estate. And that's shown in this chart here. You see the median sales price, the median values of single family homes and condos in San Francisco, the black and the gold line. And you see just how those values started appreciating rapidly compared to the rest of California in red and the rest of the United States in blue. And that rapid rate of appreciation was due to the fact that there was a rapid expansion of the San Francisco economy due to the silicon chip boom that happened in the area that we now call Silicon Valley. That same boom that happened in the 1990s due to silicon chip and the tech revolution is happening right now in San Diego due to biotech. And you'll see some numbers later in the presentation to see just how much our biotech growth is affecting our real estate market here in San Diego. So if you had a time machine and you can go back to the 1990s in that time machine and buy some San Francisco real estate, you can see here, you could buy a median home in the 1990s for around $300,000. And in just 20 or 30 years, that $300,000 home is now worth 1.6 million, if not more. That's the value of your property doubling, not once, not twice, but almost 3 times. And we're seeing that happen now in San Diego. And mark my word, although the San Diego median home right now is worth around $950,000, within 20 to 30 years, that price will double once and double again. So $950,000 home today, doubled once, is worth 1.9 million. Doubled twice is worth 3.8 million. So what am I saying? You will see San Diego median homes be worth about $3.8 million in about 30 years. It sounds like a big number because it is, but that's exactly what we saw happen in San Francisco due to the tech boom that happened there in the 90s. So a quick look at tonight's topics. We'll first start out by discussing what's going on in this economy as a whole. We'll drill down into the San Diego economy. We'll discuss San Diego housing and a look ahead into the future. What does the rest of this year and even next year have in store for us? Some of the sources that we get all this data from: Keeping Current Matters, UCLA Anderson, San Diego Association of Governments, San Diego Association of Realtors, California Association of Realtors, and reportsonhousing.com. Some of these are open sources that any of you can access. Some of them are subscription sources that I pay a subscription to get all this data. What I really want to impress upon you, though, is the data tonight is not all coming from one source, but literally dozens of sources, too many to name on this one slide. But I want you to be aware that I've collected data from dozens of sources, compiled it into one concise presentation so that you, as a consumer out there thinking about real estate, can see in one fell swoop what is going on in the San Diego market. I also like to share this. Headlines terrify, data clarifies. You have probably all read the news lately about all kinds of awful things, and that's because news sells when the news is bad. Sometimes we'll see that the headlines can also mislead because a news headline doesn't really dive into the data or share with you what's really going on in any given situation the way data can. So tonight we're going to dive into data to really clarify what's going on in this market. A lot of people I know are hearing rumors of a housing crash or that home prices could go down, prices are too elevated. If you're hearing that there could be a housing crash, I ask you to just do one thing. Think about all the noise you're hearing out there, what your parents are telling you, your family, your coworkers, your friends about real estate. A lot of folks talking about real estate right now don't understand it. They don't have advanced degrees in real estate or in finance. So for those of you that are hearing all the noise out there, I'm going to ask just for an hour or so that you be willing to look at another perspective of what's going on in the real estate market, backed up not by emotion or feelings, but backed up by real data in real information. And if you want to make your decisions based off real data, then hopefully this presentation will help you make your future decisions. With that said, get ready for what will probably be the most data intense real estate presentation of your life. There's a lot of numbers, a lot of charts, a lot of graphs that all paint a picture of what's going on in the market. And I will interpret some of the graphs for you. Your only job in the next 60 to 90 minutes is for you to form your own opinion based on real data on what's going on in the San Diego market. And I'll start out by saying this. Although interest rates are higher than what they have been, we don't really have an interest rate problem. What we have is a housing inventory problem. And I phrase it this way because interest rates can and do change quickly. Interest rates are an artificial man-made creation that the Federal Reserve, that banks can ratchet up and ratchet down just as quickly. What we cannot ratchet up and ratchet down that quickly is housing inventory. Creating more housing is a long-term evolutionary type of thing that takes years, if not decades. And we have gone well over a decade without building enough housing, ensuring that the decades to come, we will have a deficit, even after interest rates come back down. When it comes to the value of anything, it comes down to only two things: supply and demand. The supply of that product and what is the demand for that product relative to the supply of it. At the end of the day, when it comes to housing, we just don't have enough supply. And you'll see the charts to back that up. As supply goes down of anything, prices go up unless demand goes down more than supply. But in California, in San Diego, and really throughout the nation, we're seeing demand greatly outweigh what we have for supply. So where is the demand side of the equation coming for housing? Well, when you look at real estate, you've got to look at who are the buyers. That's where demand comes from. And this chart does a great example of correlating and comparing the last major real estate cycle, where we saw a crash around 2006 through 2009. And leading into 2006, 7, and 8, we were introducing the largest amount of housing we had ever built in a decade to be sold to one of the smallest generations hitting first-time home buyers, and that was Gen X. You can see that in 2006, a majority of Gen X were aging into their early 30s, which is traditionally first-time home buying age. And that was a very small generation population-wise, as you can see on the chart. So we built a lot of homes leading into 2006 for a very small generation. We fell into a housing crash in 2007, 8, and 9. We worked our way out of it, and we're now in the 2020s. Well, during the 2000 teens, we simply did not build much housing. And you'll see that in future slides, because home builders felt burned from what happened in 2007, 8, and 9. So now we have the opposite problem happening. We have the largest generation, millennials, followed by post-millennials, Gen Z. These exceptionally large generations are turning into their early 30s, first-time home buying age, and they are being welcomed by the lowest amount of inventory we have ever built in this nation over any given 10-year period. So just as much as we saw home prices crash in 2007, 8, and 9, we are going to have the opposite effect throughout the 2020s. And what's the opposite of home prices crashing? It's home prices accelerating due to a lack of supply based on a lack of building for the last 10 years, meeting the largest generation in our history, at least in our near-term history, millennials and Gen Z hitting the first-time home buyer age. Here's the supply side of the equation. I mentioned how we overbuilt for those Gen Xers, but after that big crash of 2007, 8, and 9, we grossly underbuilt. And you can see here, even the projection for 2023, we're projected to build under 1 million. In a normal 10-year period, we build close to 2 million homes, 1 to 2 million per year. And you can see right now we're building less than 1 million. So it's this housing deficit meeting the huge demand that is causing prices to go up so quickly. Here you can see these two slides side by side, or rather over under each other. And you can see in 2006, the correlation of building too much inventory, having too much inventory, correlated with the smallest generation, Gen X. And you can see this lack of inventory now in the 2020s is correlating with the larger generations, millennials and Gen Z. We are projected to continue to have a lack of inventory in the nation and San Diego for the next decade plus. So you can anticipate seeing faster and more appreciation over the next 10 years than what we have seen in the last 10 to 20 years. When you zoom in on San Diego, you see the true deficit of supply, and that is almost 80,000 homes. You see the dark blue line is the amount of homes we needed to build per year just to meet our growing population and our growing demand. So we need to build about 15,000 a year going back to the early 2000s. We have built so little that we've now created a shortage of almost 80,000 homes between what we need to have and what we actually have for the population that exists today in San Diego. Now, the lack of housing is not just lack of building. That's the long-term thing that will be here even after rates go down. But another challenge we have right now throughout the nation is, as you know, during the pandemic, interest rates dropped to all-time lows. You could refinance a house in the 2s or in the 3s. So right now, 80% of homeowners have an interest rate in the 2s or the 3s. 80%. If you're a homeowner and you have an interest rate because you refinanced during the pandemic, and you have an interest rate in the 2s or the 3s, what is your incentive to sell your house and go buy a new house with a new interest rate of 6.5? Your incentive is almost zero. So all of these current homeowners sitting on like a 3.5% mortgage, they might not love their house anymore, but they love their mortgage, and they love their mortgage enough to not sell. For this reason, we're seeing housing stock get tied up by all of these homeowners that simply don't want to sell. When you zoom in on Southern California and you look at how many homes are for sale compared to the same month pre-pandemic, you get the chart you see in front of you right now. And you can see here, like, look on the far right, March 2023. In March of this year, Southern California had about 40% less new listings than we typically would see in Southern California in a normal March during the years of 2017, 18, and 19, pre-pandemic normal times. And as you go back since the beginning of the pandemic, you can see that every month nearly there's been less homes for sale than what we traditionally would see pre-pandemic. This is the effect of homeowners refinancing into low interest rates and not wanting to lose that interest rate. And the more interest rates went up in the United States on the 30-year mortgage over the last 12 months, the more we saw missing sellers, as you see here in the blue. That lack of new inventory from these missing sellers coming to market is ensuring that throughout Southern California, month over month, we have less new inventory than ever before in human history. The dark colored lines are the amount of new listings that came to market every month in Southern California for every year going back to 2015. As you can see in the blue line on the bottom, 2023, we are at all-time historic lows of homes for sale on the market, and that's expected to remain. Now, going back to a principle of economics, the value of everything comes down to supply and demand. So even if the higher interest rates in the 6.5 percentile is eliminating some demand, because maybe some people can't buy at a 6.5% mortgage, the amount of supply has been decimated even more by people just not coming to market. What this does in turn is it ensures real estate values keep on going up. When you zoom in from Southern California to San Diego specific, you see that it is even worse. Remember, I showed you in March of 2023, Southern California had about 40% less homes for sale compared to a normal pre-pandemic year. When you zoom in on San Diego, that number grows by almost 10%. And you can see here that the San Diego number of homes for sale relative to pre-pandemic is about 50% less. Yes, we're operating with 50% less homes than what we did pre-pandemic. Next slide. 1 second, having a little issue with the slide. All right, there we go. All right, projected missing sellers in San Diego throughout the rest of this year, about 26,700. What that's telling us is we're simply going to have a lot less inventory for buyers to be able to buy. The number of buyers out there is actually growing though. So this is going to ensure throughout the rest of 2023, you will see home values go up due to the low inventory out there. This chart is showing you simply month over month active listings, not just new inventory coming to market, but the total number of listings on the market right now. And you can see we're sitting around 2,000 active listings. Now, in a normal pre-pandemic year, and that's highlighted by the purple line on top, 2019, You can see in the summer, we usually have about between 7 to 8,000 homes for sale. Right now, we're operating with around 2,000 homes for sale, which means we're operating with about 25% the inventory we usually have. Inventory is down well over 50%, and we simply don't have the housing stock out there. Again, back to supply and demand. Without that supply, you will see home prices continue to go up throughout the year. With the low inventory, we're seeing expected market time stay relatively low. Expected market time is simply how long does it take for a home to go into escrow, for an offer to be accepted. Right now, we're sitting at just over 30 days expected market time for all homes. Anything less than 60 days expected market time is a hot market. Below 40 is an extremely hot market. So if you're a buyer, what does that mean to you? That means you're going to see multiple offers. You're going to see bidding wars. If there's a property you see that you like, you better put an offer on it within 24 to 48 hours because somebody else is going to see it as well. And you might be thinking, well, I'm not going to buy now, then I'm going to wait for more inventory to come to market. Well, here's the truth. More inventory will not come to market until interest rates get down substantially, because all the inventory is tied up by current homeowners that don't want to sell and give up their low interest rate. If you wait for more inventory to come to market, that means you're waiting for interest rates to go down. If you wait for interest rates to go down, what's that going to do to demand? It's going to increase it. More buyers are going to come in the market as they see interest rates go down, and you're going to have substantially more competition. And that increase in competition is going to outweigh the amount of additional inventory. So what we're telling our buyers right now is get out there still, buy at today's prices, because if you wait longer to buy, you will pay more money due to the limited inventory that will remain low throughout the year. San Diego demand year over year. This is simply, demand is not the right word for this chart. The right word is open escrows, because there's actually more demand than there are homes for sale. In fact, for every property for sale, most homes now are getting 3 to 6 offers, showing that for a good turnkey home, demand is about 6 times higher than what supply is due to the amount of offers all these homes are getting. But what we see here is the amount of open escrows is also sitting around 2,000. The fact that about 2,000 homes are coming to market every month and 2,000 homes are being sold every month, and average market time is about 30 days, 1 month. That is telling you everything that comes to market is selling immediately within a month of it coming to market, because we just don't have enough supply to satisfy all that demand. This shows you those two charts together where you can see both active listings and demand sitting around 2,000. Homes come on the market, they go immediately off. So what is the bottom line? What's going on in this real estate market? Number one is, you'll see in some subsequent charts, there is not a real estate crash on the horizon, just not happening. There's not one single piece of data that is pointing towards a crash, but there are multiple pieces of data pointing towards real estate prices skyrocketing. Number two, there is not enough real estate supply. I've already shown you that in a few charts, and we'll look at a few more to highlight that fact. Number three, over the long term, real estate prices will keep going up. There's no 10-year time in American history in which homes were worth less than they were 10 years ago. They always go up in value. That's real estate in America. But we will likely appreciate even more over the next 10 years than we have in the last 10 years, because of the demographic of first-time home buyers, millennials and Gen Xers that we just showed you, and because of the lack of inventory out there to buy. Because of the lack of housing and the growing populations, you will also see rent will continue to go up. This is important to know. If you're a renter right now thinking, should I buy? Well, I can guarantee you your rent will keep going up. The longer you wait to buy, the more you will pay for the house you ultimately buy. And the more you'll pay in rent, because every month you're just tossing that rent down the drain, getting nothing for it. Now is a good time to buy real estate. Now is a good time because interest rates are still relatively high in the sixes, which is stifling demand a little bit, keeping some buyers on the sidelines. With this low inventory, you might think it's kind of tough to buy out there, but wait until interest rates go down. It's going to become even more challenging. So now is an easier time to buy than it will be when rates go down. And homes are way cheaper now than they will be in the future when rates go down. Because you see, when interest rates go down, well, that might loosen up some inventory. You will see more buyers come out, and that will drive home prices back up. So, what we're telling our clients right now is buy now and refinance later. You can always refinance the interest rate of your mortgage when rates go down, refinance it to a lower rate, but you can't refinance the purchase price of your house. As you see before you, home values are going up. I was talking to someone the other day and they said that they're waiting for a housing dip. And I said, well, you must be a fool because that already happened. And they said, what do you mean it already happened? And I showed them this chart and their jaw hit the floor. They didn't realize that the housing dip already happened. It happened in December and January. Any of you who have been following my webinars, and I've been doing these for years, you heard me call it when it happened. During my December webinar, during my January webinar, I said, this is the bottom of the real estate market. Anyone who wants to buy cheap, buy now. You're going to start seeing home prices go up. And come February, we saw values go up, and they will continue to do so as we get further into the year. But we saw the bottom of the housing market in San Diego, January. $849,000 was the median price of a home that sold in January in San Diego County. By April, that price had gone up to $952,000. In just 3 months, from January, February, March, April, we saw real estate values go up 12.2% in just 1 quarter. Now, imagine if you bought a property in January. You could have bought an $849,000 house with just 3.5% down payment. In just 3 months, 12% appreciation reflects $103,000 in appreciation. And you only put down $29,000. If you divide $29,715 divided into $103,600, you get a 348% return on your money. There is nowhere on earth you can get a 348% return on your money in just 3 months, other than learning the market, studying the market, and knowing when to buy. This is why our clients work with our team, the Kappel Realty Group, because people say you can't time the market. Well, if you study economics, if you study finance, and you look at the way the markets move, it's pretty common sense to be able to tell what direction prices are going to go. And what we're seeing right now is prices will keep going up. Not as much as they did in the last quarter, but nonetheless, they will keep going up due to the lack of supply. When you zoom in on condos, obviously condos are worth less than a detached home. They make it a more affordable option, especially for a first-time home buyer. The first 2 properties I personally bought in San Diego County almost 20 years ago, the first 2 properties I bought were also condos. Well, likewise, we saw the condo market bottomed out in December and January, and now it's on the upswing. Last month, we saw the median sales price. It's $640,000, representing a 9.4% increase in just 4 months, and also further illustrating that the dip has already happened in January and December. So what's going to cause home prices to go up, and what caused that dip that we saw in January and December? Well, buyer demand is heavily weighted on interest rates. And we see that when interest rates fall below 6.5, buyer demand is good. When it gets below 6 into the 5s, buyer demand is strong. When rates are above 6.5 and close to 7, that lowers demand because less buyers can afford real estate at those higher interest rates. So when we know inventory is low, and we know inventory is going to stay low, We know that prices go up when demand goes up. So we know that as interest rates go down throughout the next year or two, you will see home values go up. We know that when rates are around 6.5% to 7% due to less buyer demand, real estate values are a little bit lower, making it a good time to buy. This is why it's a good time to buy when rates are in the sixes or even close to seven, because you can buy cheaper. And then when rates go down throughout the year and rates get in the low sixes or even in the fives, you can refinance that property that you bought with a higher interest rate. Just refinance it to a lower interest rate, but at least you got it for the cheaper price. You can never refinance the value that you buy your property for. Anyone who waits till later this year, or God forbid, 2024 to buy when rates go down, you will get a lower rate on purchase, but you'll also pay more money for that property. So which way are interest rates going from here? Are they going to stay flat? Are they going to go down? Well, we have a government debt crisis going on right now. And every time we've had a government debt crisis where the Republicans or Democrats are hacking it out to decide if they're going to raise a debt ceiling, they have always, at the 11th hour, passed a debt ceiling increase because they don't want the US government to default. If the US government defaults, you'll see interest rates go sky high, which would make it an even better time to go buy real estate. But they likely won't default. We shall see in the coming weeks. If they don't default, rates will kind of stay where they're at, maybe even start going down a bit. But here are the projections that the major real estate associations are projecting throughout the rest of this year, from Fannie Mae to the Mortgage Bankers Association to the National Association of Realtors. You can see that sequentially throughout each quarter, from 2003 Q2, Q3, Q4 into 2004, all major indices are projecting interest rates to go down, finding ourselves in the fives by the end of this year. That's why I'm saying if interest rates hit the low sixes or the high fives by the end of this year, you will see real estate values go up substantially, because the lowering of interest rates will create more buyer demand, more buyer affordability, just as higher interest rates made some buyers back off. Here it is really just drawn out in a graphic representation. So you can see going back nearly half a decade to 2018 where rates were, where they are, and where they are projected to go by the end of this year. And again, they're projected to be in the fives, which would increase demand on a housing stock that already has low supply. You have low supply, you increase demand, you will see prices go up. This shows you just how much interest rates affect affordability. Let's take, for example, rates right now are around 6.5%, some even pushing 7%. If you want to have a mortgage that is $4,000 a month, plus or minus, and rates are 7%, you can only afford a $750,000 home. If you want a $4,000 mortgage per month and rates are 4.5%, as you can see on the far right, you can afford $1 million home. So what happens when rates fall from 7% to 5% and 5% to 4%? Buyers' purchasing power goes up. So those buyers who were previously qualified for $4,000, they're still qualified, but now they're qualified for more because of the change in interest rates, allowing them to be able to buy a more expensive home. This is what drives property values up when interest rates go down. So in this example, when rates get down to 4.5%, the amount of monthly mortgage, $4,000, that used to be able to afford a $750,000 home, you can now afford $1 million home. And more buyers will become qualified, putting more buyers into the fray, ensuring you have more competition, which will also push up home values. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is a home today that is worth $750,000, if rates were to fall to around 4.5, you'll see that same home sell close to $1 million. So just at 2%, 2 to 2.5% drop in rates, you can see home values go up roughly 33%. That's how much the interest rates can affect home values. So what should you do? Wait to buy or buy and then wait? Again, what we're telling clients to do right now is, well, competition is low and prices are low, i.e. right now, buy with what you would call a 2-1 buy down program. Get the seller to buy a lower interest rate for you as a closing cost. And then when interest rates go down 12 months from now, 18 months from now, refinance into that lower interest rate. So you get the best of both worlds. You get to purchase at the lower home value and you get that lower interest rate after rates go down. So refi later. You can see here though, just on another chart, how low the inventory is in San Diego County. Right now, we have 22.8% less homes than we had on market 12 months ago. And by this graphical representation, going back again a decade to 2013, you can see that inventory is remaining at all-time lows. Month supply of inventory is just another way to look at how many homes are on the market by judging how quickly they are selling. This tells us that if no new homes came to market, it would take 1.3 months for all existing inventory to be off the market and to be sold. What that tells us is we have a very low inventory, very hot real estate market. A normal balanced market is usually about 6 months supply. Anything below 2 months is an exceptionally hot market with low supply, which San Diego has remained at for quite some time. Median sales prices, as you saw, are going up. They're going up even with the high interest rate environment that we're in right now. Imagine what'll happen to home prices when interest rates go back down. Now, in the news and in the media, you're hearing a lot of the news and a lot of people say that real estate values are down. You're hearing them say values are down 4.7%, 5%. You can see here in the chart on the right that it shows a negative 4.7%. What is that telling us? That's telling us that year to year, so April of 2023 compared to April of 2022, yes, we are down 4.7%. But that doesn't mean the housing market's going down right now. The housing market's actually going up, as you can see on the bottom chart on the far right. What happened is we just haven't yet hit the crest, the peak that we hit last year. Last April, the median sales price of a home was $1 million. April of 2023, we're at $952,000. That's why year over year, over the last 12 months, we're down 4.7%. But year to date, we're up over 12%. The year to date that you see here that I'm circling now, that's year to date increase compared to the year to date of where we were last year. It's not showing year to date this year. So the bottom line is, although the media and the news and your friends might say the real estate market's down, they're saying it's down compared to 12 months ago. But it's actually up substantially compared to 1 month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, because we're on the upswing right now. Percent of original list price received. You can see here the difference between condos and single family homes, but both properties are selling right around list price. Single family homes last month were selling at 99.7% of list price. Condos were selling at 100.3%. And you can see that number substantially continuing to go up. We hit a bottom in December again, where homes were selling at 95.1% of list price, and that has steadily been climbing from December through April 2023. By the end of May, you'll see this month home prices selling above 100% of list price. Almost every home selling right now is going well above list, because there's just not much inventory out there. And keep in mind too, the list price of a property is not what that property is worth. The list price usually has everything to do with marketing, and as real estate agents will often list homes a little bit less than what they're worth just to get bidding wars going on. The value of real estate is what it actually sells for. Now, if you're out there and you're shopping in the lower end market, and in San Diego, that's 750,000 and below, you're going to have even more competition. As you can see in this chart, broken down by the percent of inventory in San Diego compared to the percent of demand in San Diego. And we can see that for condos and homes worth less than 750,000, that makes up 26% of San Diego County's inventory, but it makes up 40% of our current demand in San Diego. There's more people chasing the same property. That's why you're going to see homes sell well above list price and appreciate a lot faster when they're valued below 750,000. It's not till you get above $1 million that the inventory really starts to match up with the demand. So as a buyer out there, just know mentally, if you're buying something below $1 million, it's going to be a very competitive market. When you go out with your real estate agent, you got to write offers quick, make decisions fast. But during your inspection period, you can always back out, so you don't need to make a decision that fast. But the decision to submit the offer has to be quick. And also anticipate that you likely will pay more than list price, but you will not pay more than the property is worth. Keep it in mind that the list price is not what the property is worth. It's a marketing thing. You'll have an appraisal done to make sure you don't pay more than what it's worth. This is a good chart showing you just how much demand there is out there at the price points below $1 million. So for those of you that are renting, I created this spreadsheet to really show the math and the benefits of renting versus owning. Now, a lot of people would say renting is cheaper because owning often comes with a little bit of an upfront price tag, the down payment, and a lot of times the mortgage on a property is going to be more than what you would pay to rent that same property. So a lot of times people see just what's right in front of them instead of beyond it. And they would say, hey, if the mortgage to own a property is higher than what it would cost me to rent it, I'm going to rent it because that seems cheaper, right? Well, it's cheaper today, but it doesn't mean it's cheaper in the long run. And assuming you're going to live to a ripe old age, you should make your financial decisions, your living decisions, based on what is cheapest in the long run. And I think you and I would both agree that whatever housing situation saves you more money and is cheaper for you over time, that's the one you should go with, not the one that's necessarily cheaper today. So let's zoom in on this mathematical model, this spreadsheet. And I'm going to use a case study for you, a real property, 801 West Hawthorne Street. This is a condo I know very well because my wife and I own this condo. It's a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom in Little Italy downtown. If it were to sell today, it would sell for around $500,000, $500,000. So what I did in this financial model is I said, what would it look like for someone who buys this condo today versus renting this condo? And now this doesn't have to be a 1-bed, 1-bath. A $500,000 property can get you a condo in other neighborhoods that have 2 or 3 bedrooms. But for this one, this is a downtown condo. And if you buy it for $500,000, I'm going to make a few assumptions. You put down 5%, which is $25,000. You get a 6.5% mortgage interest rate. I'm going to assume, as you see in the top right, that you got an amortizing loan, which means it's paid off in 30 years. I'm going to assume you pay property taxes, which are usually 1.25% of the purchase price. Taxes go up about 2% a year. Also assuming that you pay annual insurance of $800 and an HOA fee of $400 a month, and that those both go up at 3% a year. Now, after we make those assumptions, there's a few more we got to make in the bottom left. Let's assume the property value goes up 6% per year. That's the San Diego average rate of appreciation over the last 35 years. Pretty good data to go off of. Let's also assume that if you didn't buy this place, you could rent it for $3,000 a month, as you see in the bottom left. And last but not least, let's assume your rent can go up 5% a year. Your rent can go up more than that. It can go up 10% a year. But let's say you got a nice landlord and they only raise it 5% a year. Now I want to put your eyes over on the far right, far right, where it says PMT year one, payment year one. If you buy this property, you are going to pay $3,990 a month. A lot of money. If you rent this property, you're going to pay $3,000 a month. And I know this for a fact because I own it and I have a tenant in it right now and they're paying me $3,000 a month. So a lot of people would look at that one column and they would say, well, 3,990 is a lot more than 3,000. So I'm going to rent it instead of owning it. That's what most people would say. Unfortunately, most people don't understand finance, economics, or real estate enough to know that they just made a very expensive decision. As long as you plan on living for a number of years, it is far cheaper to own it. Look at what I circled on the far left in red. As an owner, taking all these variables into account, how much do you pay to live in this property over 30 years? 1.597 million, almost 1.6 million. As a renter, how much do you pay? Over 30 years, you pay 2.391 million, almost 2.4 million. That's nearly $800,000 more paid as a renter over 30 years than you paid as an owner. And you might be thinking, yeah, but Patrick, I'm not going to live there for 30 years either way. Well, this mathematical model still applies because if you're not living there, you're living somewhere else where rent goes up or where you could buy and build your own equity. Now that monthly payment keeps going up for the renter, 5% per year. The monthly payment stays pretty much the same for the owner. And by year 31, after the mortgage is 100% paid off, the owner no longer has a mortgage. And all they got to pay is their HOA, their insurance, and their taxes, which add up to just over $2,000 a month, as you see under monthly payment at year 31. The renter, on the other hand, is paying over $12,000 a month. And you might think that's crazy to go from $3,000 a month to over $12,000. And it is crazy, but that's math. Math is a little crazy, and it's the power of compound interest, the eighth wonder of the world. If you take $3,000 a month in rent and it grows by only 5% a year, 5% rent bumps every year, year over year, by year 31, you are paying over $12,000 a month in rent. That is the detriment of being a renter. But that's also the value of being a property owner. And if you want to move on from owning a house to owning investment real estate, maybe a duplex in San Diego, that reflects how much money you could be cash flowing to help set you up for retirement. Your net worth increase, that's pretty self-explanatory. But if you rent a property, you own nothing. And after 30 years of renting real estate, you have paid off your landlord's mortgage and then some. You made them a lot of cash flow as well, but you own nothing. Whereas on the other hand, if you own it, you took out that mortgage after 30 years of owning, you are now a multimillionaire. How does that happen? Well, if you take a $500,000 property and it grows at just 6% a year, 6% appreciation year over year for 30 years, within 30 years, that $500,000 property is now worth over $3 million. You paid it off free and clear. You own it still. You are, by definition, a multimillionaire. That's how you become not a millionaire, but a multimillionaire. Anyone in San Diego can become a multimillionaire. You don't need a high-paying job. You don't need a high education. All you need to do is own San Diego real estate, even if it's just a $500,000 condo, and then let time do the rest of the work for you. This is how you build wealth. So with that kind of introduction, we're halfway through, but let's get into a little bit of a macroeconomic update. Inflation has been the key word for the last year. So what's going on with inflation? We're seeing it really start to calm down. On the left is 2022. On the right is 2023. And as you can see, for the last 12 months, it's really just April, May, and June of last year where we saw some rather high inflation numbers. As we get through May and June and then July of 2023, these numbers on the left are going to fall off. And inflation numbers year over year are going to look much lower. Again, this is why it's important to look at month over month data, not just year over year data. With inflation starting to calm down, you'll see the Fed back off a bit on raising interest rates. But with inflation here, and inflation is never going to go away. We usually have about 2 to 3% inflation year over year, as you can see every decade going back to the 1950s. In the blue, we see the last 50 years worth of inflation and the average annual rate of inflation for every decade going back to the 1970s. In the green next to it, we see the average rate of appreciation of the US housing market. And you can see that more often than not, the green bar is higher than the blue bar. What that is telling you is that owning a house rather than renting is not only just a hedge against inflation, it's often going to outpace inflation, and the appreciation of your house is going to help you build wealth against inflationary environments. On the other hand, if you remain a renter, rent also almost always goes up faster than inflation. This again goes back to the 1970s, over 50 years, and you see the green line, which is rental price appreciation, how much rents are going up, is almost always higher than the blue line, average inflation during that decade. So what this tells you is your rents are also going up faster than inflation. As a renter, you get like a double whammy. You're getting punched in the left and the right eye because you're losing out on inflation. You're losing out on the appreciation of owning a house. And you're also taking the brunt of having your rent go up faster than appreciation, than inflation. So most are saying that there's a high probability of a US recession later this year. We shall see if this happens. A lot of people might tell you that a recession is bad for housing, or maybe you should wait to see if a recession happens. I'm telling you, a recession usually makes real estate values go up even more. That sounds weird because usually during a recession, the value of the stock market goes down, the economy slows down. So why would real estate values go up during a recession? Well, we already explained it through interest rates, but let's take another look at it. You can see before you now the last 6 recessions. In 4 out of the last 6 recessions, home prices actually went up. The one time they went down a lot was 2008, and that was a recession caused due to housing, not caused due to inflation or the Fed or anything. Why do home prices go up during recessions? Because of this. 100% of the time we enter recessions, interest rates go down, and we see the 30-year fixed mortgage rate go down. And as you saw in earlier slides, supply and demand, when we see interest rates go down, we usually see home values go up. That's why a recession would actually be a good thing for the housing market, because it would help lower rates, which would help loosen up inventory and help increase home prices even further. This is also one of the reasons why interest rates are high right now, guys. Interest rates on the 30-year mortgage are usually about 1.5% higher than what the US government 10-year treasury is trading at. The 10-year treasury lately has been trading around 3 to 4% plus or minus, telling us that interest rates should be about 1.5% higher than the 10-year treasury. So 30-year mortgage interest rates should be around 5.5 right now, yet they're around 6.5 to 7. Why are 30-year mortgage rates artificially so much higher than the 10-year treasury right now? Easy answer. Because lenders don't want to give you loans right now. Because lenders know the average mortgage lasts for about 7 to 10 years. So if a lender gives you a mortgage, they get a return on that mortgage, which in their eyes is an investment, their money given to you to buy a house. They get a return on that investment for 7 to 10 years before you sell or pay off the mortgage. Lenders aren't stupid. They know that anyone who gets a mortgage now at 6.5% is going to refinance it within a year or two when rates fall in the 5s. Because of that, lenders know their investment by giving you a mortgage isn't going to last more than a year. So to make that investment, they want a little bit higher return over the short term. Another reason why mortgages are a little bit artificially high right now and actually have a lot of room to move down. I talked about the media before and how you can't believe everything you read. A lot of headlines are just that. They're headlines to get your attention. They don't show the true story. And I read a headline the other day that said last year in 2022, US foreclosure activity doubled. And I was like, what does this mean? Because foreclosures really aren't that high. And as I dug into it, I saw that, yeah, well, they doubled from 2022 compared to 2021. You can see we went from 151,000 to 324,000. This is nationwide data, by the way. They're still historically low. This is a way that a lot of consumers can be duped into thinking bad things are happening. If I simply tell you foreclosure activity doubled year over year, you're going to think, oh my God, the housing market's going to crash. But if I put it in perspective and I say, yeah, but we are still at a third of the foreclosure rate that we typically saw leading up to the pandemic, where we'd see 1.1 million, 933,000 foreclosures, you'd see that we're still in a super low foreclosure environment. This puts it just in a chart. As of the end of last year, going into December 2022, San Diego County was at all-time historic lows of foreclosures. There's not a foreclosure crisis out there, guys. There's not a housing crisis out there unless you look at the crisis of not having enough housing. So what's the forecast for the rest of this year? Well, if you look at all the major entities that do housing forecasting for the nation as a whole, the average of these 6 forecasts is 1.8%. So all entities combined are expecting the national real estate market to go up 1.8% in value. Keep in mind, though, real estate is all about 3 things: location, location, location. The San Diego area real estate market typically appreciates a lot more than the rest of the nation because of the high desirability of San Diego. With that said, we've already seen San Diego prices up 12% just year to date. And we're getting pretty darn close to the all-time peak of $1 million for a median sales price. We will likely pass that before the end of this year. When you look at all the economists that have been surveyed, 100 of them, and you break down these 100 economists throughout the nation, and you say, how much appreciation or depreciation are you expecting? You see on this graph that 20, 28, and 17 of these 100 economists are expecting national appreciation this year from 1% to 10%. So the majority of economists are projecting will appreciate somewhere between 1 to 10%, but no doubt we will appreciate. And these economists turned out to be correct. This forecast was published at the end of 2022. We're not even in 2023 yet. Now that we're a good 5 months into this year, we're seeing their forecast was accurate throughout the nation. We've seen prices appreciate. And in pocket markets with high desirability like San Diego, we have seen the appreciation even above 10%. As we push out beyond 2023 into 2024, 25, 26, what percentage of national economists are projecting appreciation? As you can see, 86, 91, and finally 96.8% 2026. What these pie graphs are showing you is that as the years go on and we get further and further from the pandemic that we all lived through, further and further from this high inflation, the Fed raising rates, economists are projecting the real estate market in the United States not to get weaker and weaker, but to get stronger and stronger and for prices to continue to appreciate. All these reasons, guys, and all this data and graphs and charts, this is the information that we are looking at as real estate agents on my team to advise our clients to say, hey, look, you should buy now before you end up paying more by waiting. So when you dive into California and San Diego, why is San Diego appreciating so much faster than the rest of the United States? And more importantly, will it continue to appreciate so much faster? And if so, why? So let's take a look at the why. The San Diego current market and all of its data, it comes down to one thing, and that's what you see in red: supply and demand. It's the most powerful economic force in the world. And the value of everything from cars to food to even just a bottle of beer at the store. It all comes down to what's the supply and demand. So these are the two things we really got to look at when trying to determine what direction will the value of housing go. Well, we already know by the chart in front of you that supply is too low. In fact, we need to build 15,000 units a year. We built a fraction of that. As you see here, we're short by over 80,000 units. The other thing we know when it comes to the value of real estate, it's based upon the value of the economy around that real estate. And why is that? Because the value of the economy affects the demand side. If you have a really bad economy in any specific city, that means you probably don't have highly paid employees, highly paid workers. You don't have a lot of people working. You're not in growth industries. You're not in educated industries. In those industries, cities that are built around those types of kind of like blue collared industries, you'll have lower price points on housing. When you have a strong economy, a growing economy, a robust workforce, an educated workforce, one that's working in technology of the 21st century, you'll see a more highly compensated population. And that is the demand side of the equation. With a more highly compensated population, home values go up faster than the rest of the country. So when we dive into San Diego's economy and San Diego's population, what do we see? What are the trends? Number one, California's economy is growing faster than any other state in the nation. In fact, our economy is poised to overtake the German economy in the near future. And California as a state will become the fourth largest economy in the world when compared to all other nations in the world. You can see that depicted here on a chart. The blue line is simply how much a California economy has grown over the last 20 years relative to Germany's gross domestic product, their economy. This chart really shows you California's economy as a whole compared to other states. Now, my state is on this. I grew up in North Dakota. My wife grew up in Missouri. We both came here from the Midwest, yet we don't invest our money in Midwest real estate, even though we know those markets very well. Why don't we invest in the Midwest, even though you can buy real estate really cheap in the Midwest when you buy out of state? It's because I want my money to grow as much as possible, as fast as possible for me. So when I buy real estate, I look at what economies are growing the fastest in the United States. Those are the economies that will in turn have real estate that appreciates and grows the fastest in the United States. So keep that in mind as you look at these depictions of the US. You can see that California is the #1 state based on the size of our economy, gross domestic product, at 3.36 trillion, which is over $1 trillion higher than the state of Texas, which has a second biggest economy, 1.99 trillion. California's economy is almost 2 times bigger than the economy in second place, Texas. Again, this is why I invest in California. Another thing I look at is what's the size of the economy, GDP per capita, per person. The bigger the economy per person, the more disposable money that exists amongst the population in that economy. So what am I saying? When you look at this chart, the darker red colors, those societies, those states have more disposable income, more money per person than the lighter colored states. As an investor, if you want to invest where the value of your real estate goes up and outpaces the rest of the nation, you probably want to invest in states that have darker red, not states that are light or light pink. Number two, this is probably the most important one, the growth of GDP. The growth of a state's economy will affect the growth of the housing values in that state. It just makes sense. So when you look at all of these different microeconomies, each of these states, if you want to buy real estate and you want the value of your real estate to go up, or importantly, if you want the value of your real estate to go up even more than the value of the rest of the United States real estate, because maybe it's not just a house for you, it's also an investment, then you want to buy in the dark green states. The darker the green, the faster the economy is growing in those states, which in turn will create faster real estate valuation appreciation. Comparing us to Texas again, excuse me, you can see that Texas doesn't even make it in the top 5. Texas, in fact, is one of the lighter, like mid-tier greens. It's not even the top 2 colors of green. I also want to draw your attention to North Dakota. That's my home state. North Dakota showed high GDP per capita in the previous slide, but it's showing really low GDP growth, which means the economy is no longer growing that fast. It's because it's an oil dependent economy, which really kind of ebbs and flows with what's going on in oil. California, on the other hand, very diverse economy that has both oil, agriculture, and of course, technology that leads to its growth. This just simply shows you the size of each economy based on the percentage size. The previous chart I just showed you that showed the fastest growing economies in the nation. That's where you want to buy real estate if you want to build wealth, which I assume you all do. Now, when you dive into San Diego specifically, San Diego, you'll see in a future slide, is the state, is the city in our state that is experiencing some of the most appreciation in the entire state, in the entire nation, in the entire world. So why is San Diego appreciating so much more than most other cities in the world, let alone the nation in California? A few reasons. One, I circled them on the bottom left. San Diego has a working, educated population that is younger, wealthier, and better educated than the rest of the United States as a whole. You can see in the far bottom left, the percentage of San Diegans age 25 and older that have a bachelor's degree or more is 37%, compared to the United States as a whole, sitting around 30%. San Diego has about 30% more educated folks than the rest of the nation when you take it as a percentile of what's educated in the United States. Our income is higher, our ages are younger, and we're forward looking. San Diego is based on biotech. That's where we're seeing a lot of our growth. And speaking of growth, if you're wondering where should you buy in San Diego, the chart on the left shows you 1995 to 2020. And where growth happened and where it had been forecasted. And you see in blue, we did a lot of housing growth out in East County, where we had open and buildable land. And you see purple, the job growth, still kind of stayed coastal. As we have built out most of East County that can be built in the last decade or two, all that's left now is infill, tearing down small buildings and building up denser. So most of the blue that you see in the picture on the right, 2016 to 2050, what's happening in this century, you see most housing and job growth up and down the coast, hanging out a little bit further towards the west. When you look at our economy and that growth that is happening, it's important to notice that no single segment of our economy makes up more than 16% of the total economy, ensuring that we're somewhat recession resilient. And the growing driving sectors are tourism, innovation, and military. When you look at the innovation side of our economy growing and thus our housing values growing, San Diego is front and center when it comes to life sciences. Life sciences, as you see throughout the last 200 years, is the most latest innovative curve, innovative cycle that we have seen in the last 200 years, is 6-wave life sciences. And San Diego has become one of the top 3 cities in the United States of America centered around life sciences, along with Boston and San Francisco. That life science growth you can see depicted in the numbers. This chart simply shows you the amount of venture capital money coming into San Diego year over year going back 10 years. Now, in the last 20 years, since the year 2000, we have averaged about $1.1 billion coming into San Diego year over year. Starting in 2018, 2019, that number started growing rapidly. And by 2021, the amount of venture capital money coming into San Diego topped $9 billion and had grown 8.6x compared to the 20-year average of 1.1 billion. You simply can't take a community like San Diego County and infuse that much cash and not have a major impact on San Diego real estate values. When you break down where is that venture capital money going, looking at the year 2021 on the far left, You can see 4 billion went into just general tech companies, and over 5 billion alone went into the life science companies. When you take that on the right and you break it down, well, what's going into growth companies versus early stage startups? You see that between tech and life sciences, a combined $2 billion a year is still going into new startups in San Diego County. And you have over $6 billion going into growth companies that are already well established in San Diego's biotech community. When you compare San Diego's tech growth and venture capital money compared to other cities of similar size, you see that San Diego has really broken ahead of the pack in a strong way. This goes back nearly a decade to 2015, where you can see on a baseline, most of these cities were getting anywhere from $500 million to $2.5 billion in venture capital money. But once we got around 2019 to 2020, we got into those pandemic years, you saw VC money just pouring into San Diego, which now led San Diego to be the leader of the pack of cities here. I'm not comparing it to major cities that are already established tech hubs, such as San Francisco out here. You've got Boston on the East Coast. And we also left out New York, which is just a huge capital, a huge amount of personnel there. We are comparing San Diego to other major cities of similar size that have also gone through a biotech revolution. You can see all cities have a huge influx increase in the 2020s, but none as much as San Diego's investment that you see there in blue. So as a representation of some of the billions of dollars coming into San Diego, we see that just last year, over $3.4 billion was invested in the San Diego biotech real estate. Some examples of that paint San Diego today to San Francisco to 1990 include the IQHQ Research and Development District. This is a $1.6 billion development happening downtown right across from the USS Midway, and it is one of the largest waterfront biotech establishments being built right now on the west coast of the United States. Just a block away from there, you have the Seaport Village redevelopment. Ground isn't broken yet, but the planning is in the works. This is going to be a $3.5 billion development, also right on San Diego's waterfront. As we go a little bit further inland towards Mission Valley, there's billions of dollars being spent in Mission Valley, starting with the SDSU Mission Valley Innovation District. This is going to be an off-satellite campus for SDSU, where they have student housing, incubators, classrooms, and they also have the new stadium that has already been built out there, the Snapdragon. But right next to that $1.1 billion development, we have a $4 billion development. Mission Valley's Riverwalk area is going through a multi-phase development. Right now, the first phase is bringing in over 930 apartment buildings, lots of retail shops. But by the end of the 15-year development, you're going to have over 4,000 apartments and over 150,000 square feet of retail space and 1 million square feet of office. This is an 18-hole golf course that's being redeveloped into a multi-billion-dollar project, making really the Mission Valley area a good place to buy in. Some of the biggest news that we had last year was Apple is coming to town. Apple announced last year that they're going to grow by over 20,000 new employees, and over a quarter of them, 5,000, are going to be based in San Diego, because as Apple announced, San Diego is going to become a principal engineering hub for Apple. And with that, they didn't just make an announcement, they put the money where their mouth is, and they bought a nearly $500 million brand new Apple campus here in San Diego County. Go a little bit south of where that Apple campus is, and we find ourselves in Hillcrest, also near the Mission Valley area, and we have billions of dollars of new hospitals being built in Hillcrest. I would say San Diego is probably one of the cities with the most amount of billion-dollar plus construction projects happening right now. The first one in Hillcrest is this $2.5 billion new hospital being constructed by UCSD. They're tearing down the old antiquated hospital that you see in the bottom right of your screen and building this new multi-phase hospital that you see on the left side. This is simply a depiction of what the new hospital complex is going to look once it's all up and completed. Just a couple of blocks away, you have another $1 billion hospital being built, and that's Scripps Mercy, also an already standing hospital that is being redeveloped into a state-of-the-art facility with a price tag of just over $1 billion. As we go further south, we find the largest waterfront construction project currently underway, and that's the Chula Vista Bayfront development with a price tag of $2.8 billion. This has created thousands of current construction jobs, and over the long run, it's going to be a shot in the arm to the values of all real estate in Western Chula Vista, because it's going to create thousands of ongoing jobs for people that need to live down in the South Bay Chula Vista area. Just a little bit further southeast, and you see that last year we completed the largest Amazon facility in the entire state of California. It's right here in San Diego County with over 4 million square feet of warehouse space that was built. And last but not least, the biggest project happening right now at 2.7 billion is the new Terminal 1 airport redevelopment. With the new development of the San Diego airport, you're going to have many more terminals, more restaurants, more dining, more off-street parking. They're also going to have an above-ground road that takes some traffic off of Harbor Drive. But this is probably one of the biggest projects that's going to bring even more people in and out of our city for business and tourism. And you can't talk about the growth of San Diego without talking about our military economy. We're going through something right now in the military called the Pacific Pivot, which is moving more military forces to the West Coast because of the threats that we perceive out in the Pacific. One little known fact, though, is every single year, 15,000 military veterans transition off active duty right here in San Diego, where we have the largest military concentration in the world. And over half of those military vets coming off active duty stay in San Diego, bringing on to that highly educated workforce. Another little known fact is the Department of Defense, it's known as about half of our US government budget. And the number 2 recipient of DoD dollars is right here in San Diego County. A lot of that money flows here, even during recessions, because of our large military presence. And as you can see in the forecast, because of what's happening in the Pacific and what's happening with Russia, defense spending is forecasted to continue to grow in the coming years, with a large portion of that coming to San Diego, creating things like the Silver Strand military complex, which you see an artist depiction of here. This is one of our newest military bases that was just recently completed down in Imperial Beach. So along with the military and all these individual developments happening, the proof is in the numbers of what's going on in San Diego, why San Diego is growing so much, and what makes San Diego one of, if not the best city in the United States, in the world, to invest in when it comes to buying real estate, be it a home or be it investment property. And we see here that when it comes to a comeback of our downtown cities, no city in the United States of America had a stronger comeback than San Diego, with over 99% growth of our previous industries since pre-pandemic compared to all these other major cities that you see going down. San Diego has also become the number 3 destination for people in the United States looking to move to a different city. And as you see, oops, sorry, I got a few ahead there. As you see in the following chart here, San Diego being the number 3, most folks are moving here out of Los Angeles or Seattle. We're gaining a lot of our transplants up and down the West Coast, people that want that SoCal lifestyle. Professional jobs have gone more and more remote. As of 2022, nearly a quarter of all professional jobs were remote, allowing people to have a job in the Midwest or the East Coast, but still live here in San Diego. And that's why we see more growth in San Diego in our tech talent than any other city in the United States. No website knows better where people are moving to based on their education, based on their job, than LinkedIn. What you're looking at before you is a LinkedIn study that calculated how many people, percentage-wise, what was the growth of jobs in San Diego County compared to every other city in America. And as you can see, we grew by 38.6%, more than any other city in the union. Next, this chart simply depicts where people are moving to in the United States. Where you see orange, people are moving away. Where you see green, people are moving to. And when you look at it by the numbers, it doesn't get any more green than San Diego County. What this is telling you is more people are moving to San Diego County than just about any other county in the United States. It's because the population is moving more urban and less rural. If you invest in a rural area, you're investing to lose money. If you buy real estate in the Midwest or any rural area, the value of your property will not go up that much compared to buying on the coast. So is San Diego cheap? I would argue San Diego is some of the cheapest real estate in the world. And you might be thinking, well, how is that when San Diego median price is $950,000 and you can buy real estate elsewhere for $200,000 or $300,000? When I look at the value of something, and this is very important for you to know, if you want to build wealth over time, you need to be good at not determining the value of something today. You need to be good at not determining the value of something yesterday. What you need to be good at is determining the value of what something will be worth tomorrow. When you compare the price of things today compared to what they were yesterday, you're wasting your time. I mean, it's already done. The milk is spilled. You need to learn how to compare the price today compared to the things and what they will be valued at tomorrow and into the future. There is no city in the United States that has as much economic growth as what we are seeing in San Diego right now, indicating there's no city that's going to have real estate values go up faster than San Diego, meaning San Diego real estate values today are exceptionally cheap compared to what they will be in the future. And as I mentioned early on, if you could go back in time and buy early San Francisco, become that multimillionaire, wouldn't you? Of course you would, but you can do it still today with San Diego real estate. I mentioned that I was going to show you that San Diego is appreciating faster now than all other cities. And this chart shows you that going towards the end of 2022. We see in the purple line, these are simply the rates of appreciation of these cities. And San Francisco has always appreciated more than Los Angeles and San Diego. And for the first time in human history, we have seen San Diego appreciate faster than San Francisco and LA. And as you can see, that appreciation is growing faster and faster. You can be assured that as time goes on, you will see San Diego real estate values appreciate faster and faster than every other city in California and the United States. When you look at the lack of housing that was built decade over decade, tying it all back together, you see that in the last decade, from 2010 to 2019, we only built 6.5 million homes in the nation, and we usually build 10 million or more throughout the nation every decade. As you zoom in and you look at it graphically represented on a chart, you see circled in blue on the bottom right that deficit of housing that was created following the Great Recession. That's that lack of supply that we have relative to the growing demand of millennials wanting to buy. And as we zoom in on just San Diego County, we see that same trough in the bottom right, highlighted in purple. That's the lack of housing that we built. I'm sorry, it sounds like someone has their mute turned off. Please make sure you are on mute. But you can see here on the bottom right, the lack of housing that we built in San Diego. This chart does an even better depiction of the valley of housing that we didn't build. Because of the lack of housing that we didn't build, as of today, we now need to build over 21,000 homes per year, and we're building less than 10,000. We're building less than half of what we need to build, only assuring that we're going to continue to have this housing deficit throughout San Diego County. And you can see here where the biotech boom begins on the bottom right of your screen. We're comparing the orange line, the household formation change in San Diego. In other words, when the orange line goes up, more people are moving to San Diego, households are growing. And you can see that orange line really starting to grow in 2018, 19, and 20. That's all the intelligent tech people moving to San Diego, making $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. The blue line is how many homes we built. And as you can see, as our population is growing with wealthy people, the amount of homes we're building is actually going down. The other day, somebody asked me, who affords a $2 million home? Guys, I'm telling you, there's a lot of people moving to San Diego that can buy a $2 million home. A lot of people moving to San Diego that can buy a $1 million home. If your affordability right now is 500,000 or 750,000, you better buy now before that $500,000 home is $1 million and you get priced out, because everyone moving to San Diego right now is wealthy, highly educated, and highly paid. Demographically, the people moving are the ones that can't afford it, the ones moving out. We can see here, though, that the housing shortage is worse than ever. It's not just San Diego, and this housing shortage is going to be around for a decade plus, because the deficit of housing is meeting this large population, millennials coming to buy. And we can see here in San Diego that demographically, San Diego is made up of more millennials percentage-wise than just about any other city in the United States. 25% of our population is millennials compared to the US average of 21.7. That's the demand side of the equation. So you can see San Diego has that high demand. And right behind millennials is Gen Zers. Nearly half of Gen Zers say they plan on owning a home within the next 5 years. And almost 75% of them plan on owning a home within the next 10 years. When doing research and asking this next generation, Gen Z, the majority of them want to own a home because they believe it's a way to build their financial future. So anyone out there who's telling you a bubble, telling you there's a crash, stop listening to those people. What we have going on right now is simply a lack of supply. The only way you create a bubble is by loosening up lending standards. And you can see on the far left how loose lending standards were in 2004, 5, and 6. That led to that housing crash we had 15 years ago. Lending standards have been exceptionally tight for the last decade plus, and they still are, ensuring that there is no bubble, because the only people getting mortgages are those that can pay their debts. I'm not going to dive into every line item on this chart, but this chart for you to just take a quick snapshot of shows you the differences between the last housing cycle and this housing cycle, and exactly why there's no crash to come. So what are the experts saying about home prices? As we showed you earlier, most experts are predicting home values to go up, and any buyer waiting for home prices to drop is a fool. That will be a bad strategy, and you'll end up paying more money. It's not just me saying it, but just about every economist in the United States. So should you buy a home now? As I mentioned earlier, there's a very unique buying opportunity that not just I, but even a well-respected economist, Stephen Thomas, shared with a bunch of real estate agents last month, telling us the buying opportunity is now because competition is low, prices are low compared to what they will be 6 to 12 months from now. So anyone looking to get a good deal, now is the time to buy before prices go up. And it certainly is better to buy than it is to rent. As you can see here, the difference in household wealth between renters and owners is very distinct. Your typical owner in the United States is worth over $254,000, whereas your typical renter is worth around $6,000. And the owners aren't worth $250,000 simply because they got $250,000 cash sitting in the bank. It's because the biggest asset in your life, the house, is what is going to build wealth for you over the long term, whereas rent, as you see here, is what will prevent you from building wealth over the long term, because rent always goes up year over year, and as we see here, quite exponentially. So hopefully everything I shared with you tonight kind of ties back to that thesis statement that San Diego today is San Francisco circa 1990. And our real estate values due to the biotech boom will continue to go up over time as we keep seeing our jobs grow and our economy grow in San Diego. So how do you get over the hurdles of buying? A lot of times there's a hurdle of I don't have the down payment. Well, there's free money available to you to cover your down payment. And just about everyone who makes $130,000 or less is going to qualify for one of these free down payment programs to help you buy your first house. If you're interested in learning more about those, reach out to me and I'll tell you more. The number two thing that stops people from wanting to buy is they don't know where to begin. So where do you begin? Beginning to buy real estate usually looks like a one-on-one meeting with a real estate professional, a realtor. If you're interested in buying your first house after this presentation, after watching it, feel free to shoot me an email, which I'll share again at the end, patrick.kappel@compass.com. Shoot me an email and we can set up that initial meeting. The other things that hold people back is finding a right home in their price range. That's why it's important to work with a professional. We help you find what's a good fit for you in your price range. Then a lot of people feel like they don't have good credit or they're saddled with student debt. That's another reason to meet with us. We help people work through their student debt, work through other forms of debt. We also help people raise their credit score. There's a young couple that we helped last year and we got their credit score up 100 points in just 3 months. So they were able to buy a house. So if there's anything holding you back from thinking you can buy, I bet you we have a way to solve it. Reach out to my team and I, and we'll help you get around what's holding you back from buying your next house. I always like to close it out by saying there's a California gold rush, but it's not the one from 1849. It's a 2023 gold rush, and it's happening right now in the streets of your city and the streets of San Diego. There's people literally becoming millionaires simply by buying Southern California real estate, just owning it, living it, and sitting in it for 10, 20, 30 years. You will become a millionaire by just owning real estate. But keep in mind, in order to cross the finish line and get to your goals, you must first cross the starting line. As I mentioned earlier, that starting line usually looks like a one-on-one meeting with my team and I to first discuss your goals, discuss your situation, and what you want out of real estate. Who you work with matters. It's really easy to get a real estate license in California. It's really hard to be a good real estate agent. Most real estate agents you interact with are probably not going to educate you as well throughout the process as what my team does. Agents on my team are full-time real estate agents. They all live in the homes, in the properties they own. They're all investors themselves. If you want to work with a qualified real estate agent and you know that this is the most important financial decision of your life, reach out to me. And my team and I will be happy to help you with your real estate decisions now and far into the future. The best way to reach me is the email that you see in the top right. Or if you'd like a copy of tonight's presentation, or if you have any friends or family that you think could benefit from tonight's presentation, shoot me an email, request a copy, CC any friends or family that you think would benefit from it. I'll hit reply all and I'll send you a copy of tonight's recording. It's a big file, so it's held in like a Google Drive. It's beneficial if you have a Gmail to share with me your Gmail, and I'll be able to send you a copy of tonight's link through a Google Drive. With that, it looks like there's no questions, so I'll close it out for tonight. And again, anyone who'd like a copy, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll send you a copy of everything we covered tonight. Have a good evening.